All right, so we've got Backrooms, directed by Kane Parsons. So I saw this movie in theaters a few days ago, and I've honestly been kind of pondering on it ever since I saw it, trying to kind of figure out where I landed with it. For me, I think this movie was kind of a mixed bag. I think there are some things in it that I absolutely loved, and some things that didn't really work for me. So starting out with the positives, I love the concept of this movie. You have this liminal space. At first, it looks like an office building that's kind of full of these rooms that are endless, and it just kind of goes on and on and on. These rooms are filled with odd objects. Everything is just kind of slightly off. It's almost kind of like being in the Twilight Zone. It's my understanding that the concept for this movie isn't really unique to this movie. It's based off of like a YouTube phenomenon that I wasn't really familiar with prior to seeing this movie. But there was something about exploring these different rooms that I just found so creepy. And just being inside of this kind of maze labyrinth and exploring these rooms endlessly, never knowing what's in them. I thought the opening scene in this movie was great. It's kind of done in like a found footage sort of way where the person holding the camera is kind of exploring these rooms. It's endless. He feels like he's not alone. There are rooms everywhere, doors everywhere, constantly kind of exposed. No real way to get safe. And I just found that to be like very terrifying. I found the performances in this movie to also be exceptional. Chiwetel Ejiofor is a master of his craft, and I feel like he doesn't really get talked about enough. I love Chiwetel Ejiofor. Every time he's in a movie, I feel like he elevates the material and kind of classes up the joint. And it's no different here in Backrooms. I think he was easily one of my favorite parts about this movie. So getting into some of the negatives or some of the things that didn't work for me in this movie, as much as I love the concept of this movie, there are times where it feels like the movie is only a concept. It feels like they had an idea for a movie based on these YouTube shorts, exploring this liminal space and going through these endless doors. And it's like they went with that concept and wanted to make that into a feature-length film. And I'm not sure if it really succeeded in doing so. There are times in this movie where it feels like all you're doing is kind of exploring the back rooms and going through these different rooms endlessly. I think this kind of highlights some of the weaknesses in the script where it's kind of just these scenes of exploration stitched together by some character interactions, but it's honestly pretty minimal. There are some really great scenes with Chiwetel Ejiofor's character when he's in therapy and he's very introspective and he is looking at himself, and he's a deeply flawed character. His therapist is also a seemingly flawed character. And I think those scenes really work in the movie, but I just wish there was maybe more of it in the movie overall. The biggest element of this movie that I've kind of wrestled with how I felt about it, was kind of the third act of the movie. I would say towards the end of the movie, the wheels kind of come off. Things get really wonky and kind of silly and goofy. And I honestly wasn't really sure how I felt about it. The more that I've kind of sat with it and thought about it, the more that I just really didn't love how the movie ended. These characters that we've kind of been with from the start acting erratically and behaving radically different than they have the entirety of the movie, with really no explanation as to why. It becomes very exposition heavy. They offer up some explanations behind the back rooms that I don't know that they really work for me. I think it might have been better left off as a mystery. It's just kind of one of those things where I don't know that you needed to provide an explanation for this phenomenon that's happening in the movie. And it really just kind of left me feeling a little unsatisfied. Overall, while I do still have issues with this movie, I did overall enjoy it. I think for me, the pros outweigh the cons. And the fact that this movie was directed by a 20-year-old YouTuber, I think is phenomenal. I think in typical A24 fashion, this movie is super weird, and I love it. I'm honestly here for it. If they were to announce Backrooms 2, I'd be there probably the opening weekend. I know it may sound like I'm kind of nitpicking on some things, but I really did like this movie overall. I feel like this was like a well-made and well-directed movie that would have maybe benefited from a better written script. I think Kane Parsons is clearly a really talented guy. This movie makes me excited to kind of see what he does next, especially with him being as young as he is. He's only going to get better from here. But those are just my thoughts. Have you had a chance to see Backrooms? If so, hop down in the comments and let me know your thoughts. And with that said, I'm out of here, guys.